Hello everybody, this is going to be a first look at the Flash interface and how to create a tweened animation and look at some of the drawing tools. So we're going to start off, I've opened Flash and if we go to file, we make a new file and then it asks us a bunch of information. What we're going to do is going to have ActionScript 3 and it asks you for the dimensions of what's called the stage in Flash, which is just the area where the animation is going to occur. So you can change that to anything you like. I'm going to make mine 800, and you can just type that in if you want, by 400. So it's going to be wider than it is long. It asks you for a frame rate. You can have that to be 24 is the default setting. You can change the frame rate to make the animation run faster or slower. And it also asks you if you want a background colour. I'm going to leave it to be white for the time being. You just say OK. Then what you'll see, oops, my computer will play ball, is I'm just going to rearrange this so it looks properly. So you can see this is the area that I've just created, which is 800 pixels wide by 400 pixels in height. And we'll just have a quick look around the Flash interface for a minute. First, what you'll see along the top is what's called the timeline. So this is counted in Flash. It's counted in frames. If you've ever used After Effects or Premiere or any of those programs, you'll know that the timeline is counted in seconds. So sometimes you have to do some maths to figure out if you're running at 24 frames per second. That means every 24 frames of this timeline is equal to 1 second in time, and that's can become very important as we go through it. So there are some basic tools on the Flash interface, things you'd expect to find, such as the pen tool, and I'm going to change the colour of that so that you can see. I'm just going to draw something with that. So if anybody's familiar with this tool, it makes Bezier curves, and we can close the path. She says, not quite doing it. Oops, there we go. Let's carry on. Oh dear, that wasn't very good. Anyway, it doesn't matter. So that just shows you that that works. Now, one important thing is that once you've got anything at all on the stage, you can then select whatever it is. And in this case, it's just a little curved line. And all I've done is grabbed with the select tool, grab the whole thing. And then in my properties inspector, it will tell me some information about it, where it is, the length of it, the height of it, and the colour. And we can also go in and change that colour if we want, so I can make that darker. Can also, because the pen tool works on what's called a stroke, which is an outline, you can change the stroke value on it, so I can make that very thick or thinner. I can also change whether it's a solid line, a dashed line. If you're really sad and you want to do that, leave it as solid. And if it's got joints, you can make them curved or straight edged. So for now, I'm just going to uncheck that. Now the other thing to know, which again, if you've used the pen tool before, then if there is a direct select tool, which is going to be important as you go through this, and which means that you can actually move your anchor points around, join them up, that kind of stuff. So you can completely change what happens with those. You can move the whole thing around. Okay, and then there's other drawing tools are the pencil tool. There we go. And then again, if I grab that, you can see that it has, although it's a freehand drawing tool, it doesn't work the same way. It does actually create the same this is called a guide path, a motion path on there. No, it's not. It's just called a guide line on there. And that has anchor points which you can manipulate and you can bend and change the direction that it goes in, drag it out, that kind of stuff. And again, also, if you use the other select tool, the direct select tool, if I double click on it, it will select the whole of that line. If I only single click on it, it will just select from one anchor point to another, which can be irritating, so it's good to know that. Just move it down a bit, and then again I can change the colour of it, and I can change the stroke value on it, so I can make that really thin if I want to, like that. Okay, so you can play around with that a bit, and you'll see that those drawing tools are are important. Now the other thing is, let's have a look at the brush tool. There's the brush tool. And you can change the thickness of the brush tool. Oop, she says, down here. So make that very thick. You can also change the kind of brush shape that you want to make. So let's try that again. And you'll see, there we go. It does change. Now, when you use the brush tool, it doesn't create a path in the same way. I've just broken the path of the other one. We're just going to undo that. Just leave it where it is, I think. But what you can do is, if you go into the Properties Inspector, you can see that this is not treated as a stroke, it's treated as a fill. So that means that it's basically a shape, not an outline. So that means you can't change the stroke and or the thickness of it or anything about it. You can change the colour of it though. So you can see, I try and change it to something else. There we go. That's changed. And then another thing you can do is down here, is you can straighten that shape, which means that it will take any curves and make them into straight lines, or you can smooth it. I'll do the smooth first, and there you go. You can see it changes. You've got to be careful with this tool insofar as you can lose parts of it where it gets so smoothed out that it actually disappears. Let's see if we can straighten it, and it will do its best. It's trying to make it into a more straight path, and not very successfully in that case, but that doesn't matter. Okay, the other thing you need to know is when you use any of those drawing tools, you can also make them, you can make the brush mode, you can use the brush mode to paint behind things, or paint fills only, or paint inside, or paint only a selection, so that, which is kind of handy if you're doing quite intricate things. And then there's the displays of it, and then there's a pressure as well. If you're using a Wacom pen, which I am at the moment, okay, if I start off, it will actually get thicker as I apply more pressure on the pen. And it also uses a tilt too. Anyway, so that gives you some basic ideas. There's also a rectangle tool. You can see that will do rectangular shape. If you hit the Shift key when you're drawing any of these shapes, it will create an exact circle, and the same with the rectangle, an exact square. There are some other shapes. We're not going to go into those for now. But one thing you might have noticed is that on my stage, what tends to happen if you've got everything on the same frame, which I have, if I select the frame, it selects absolutely everything on that frame. But what it does is it will interrupt, one shape will interrupt another. So you have to be really careful if you don't want to if you don't want to interrupt a shape, to keep things separate on separate frames, and actually that means on separate layers. So you can see all of that's on layer 1, but I can simply make a new layer, which is a little tab here. If I hit that one, that's called layer 2. It's a good idea to call these proper names. So if you just double click it, I'm going to call that one background. And then I'm going to call the second layer object moving. I'm a big proponent of calling things what they are, so to give you an idea. So at the moment we've got absolutely nothing on the layer. If I turn the other layer off, there's a little eye socket. I picked an icon of an eye. If I turn the background off, there's absolutely nothing on the stage. If I turn it back on, there it is. You can also lock that layer if you want to. Like that. Okay. So just on one other thing I wanted to show you. You might have noticed that when I mouse over some of these shapes, a little a semicircle appears next to the cursor. And that's telling me I can bend that shape, which is a bit useful. You can also do it inwardly. Now if you're careful, you can see that that will change depending on where it is. If it's near a anchor point or a square joint, that shape will change to a little triangular shape, which you can see there. And that will allow me, it won't ever do it on a circle, because circles are only there, but there we go, that's changed that one. Oops, there we go, it changed. That, oops, you have to grab it, be careful. That will grab that. And let's see if we can make one a bit more obviously. There we go, that's one. And that will just drag that angle out. So you can actually change your shape. So be careful, you see what I'm doing here? I've missed the stroke on that. So I could actually double click that. And I might decide I don't want a stroke on that. There we go, it's gone. That's my problem. Adhere to. So you can bend things around and change them. And you'll see, I'm just doing kind of a mad, let's get there. Did you notice what happened there as well? It will only go a certain point. You can just play around with this and see, whoop, pick the whole thing up there. Most important control you need to know is Control Z, which is undo. There we go. Let's make some of these. Now you'll see, this is a good way of showing you actually that things will interrupt and pull down. And there we go. All right, I think that's enough. I'm going to get rid of, if you want to get rid of stuff, you just delete it. Just press the backspace. Select it first, delete it. Select it first, delete it. Select it first, delete it. If you want to delete the whole thing off the whole frame, if you select the whole frame, that's a really fast way of doing it. Otherwise, you can just grab everything like this by just dragging the mouse across and hit the backspace. There you go. Now you see we're back to square one, we've got nothing. So what we might want to do is create a rectangle on the background. I'm just going to create something that is not the right size, just so I can show you another thing. If I select that, you can see it's on the background layer. And in here is a neat little widget thing, which has got the Align tool in it. If you can't see it, if you go to Windows and Align, it'll appear. There it is. And it gives you some options. You can align it to the stage. Now that allows you to do various things, like aligning it to the top of the stage, the middle of the stage. It's not, oh, I haven't selected it, that's why. Haha. Okay, go back to Align. You can align it to the top of the stage, the bottom of the stage, the sides, the middle. And it also lets you align things to other objects that are on the stage, but we're not going to worry about that for a minute. But in this case, what I want to do is align it so it's actually the match size. It matches the width of the stage and the height. And then I can use either the Align Vertical Center, or I could have aligned it to the top, and that will cover the whole of that stage area. So there we have, ooh, a rather bright red. So I think I'm going to turn that red down a little bit. Make it a bit darker. That's a little less tiresome on the eyes. And then what we're going to do on the other layer, rather than using a drawing, I'm just going to use the oval tool, and I'm going to make a circle, and I'm going to make the internal colour of it kind of very light grey, and then not have any stroke on it at all. I'm hitting the Shift key down, and I am just going to draw a white circle there. And you'll see, hopefully, if you turn that one off, you can see that's on the Move Object. If you turn that one off, you can still see the first object, but not the second. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is, if we want to create some movement, is we need to create a tween. But I think for this, I think that's good enough for this part. So I'm going to stop recording, and then we'll continue. I'll continue again in a minute.